At 41, I nearly walked away from AI before I'd even started. But then I built something that found a client £4 million worth of contracts in just 60 days. I built a career that looked quite impressive on paper, but it always felt completely incoherent from the inside. And when I found AI automation, my first instinct was that it wasn't for someone like me. I was too late, it was the wrong path, and I'd taken too many wrong turns already. But what I actually discovered had nothing to do with the path I'd taken. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why the career you've built so far could be your biggest advantage when it comes to working with AI systems. So I'd had a successful career by most measures. I'd had good jobs, recognizable employers, I even managed a PhD. But none of it really felt connected. Every few years, I'd get bored and I'd move into something new. And each time, I'd be hoping that this would finally be the thing that made sense. But it never quite was. And the deeper problem was the feedback loops. I'd pour months into a project, build the whole infrastructure around it, and then wait. This was a thing in my SEO work, for example. We'd wait 6 months for a data point or a year for a trend. And you could do difficult, demanding work, but never be sure that it was doing anything at all. And by the time I was approaching 40, that feeling had become impossible to ignore. So I stumbled upon AI automation through the community that was building it. There were people shipping actual systems for clients, getting results in days or even hours rather than months. And it felt more real than anything that I'd been doing up until then. But at the beginning, I still didn't think it was for me. I looked at the no-code tools like the Make and the Zapier stack that most people were using. I knew I could build with those, but I felt the ceiling was quite low and the market was already crowded with a ton of people who were selling the same set of integrations. That wasn't really where the interesting work was. And then there was the niche problem, the never-ending niche problem. Every piece of advice online always said the same thing: find one niche and stick to it. But with a background that was as varied as mine and spread across as many fields, narrowing things down to one single industry felt absolutely impossible. I just couldn't work out which part of my history was the relevant one and the most potentially lucrative one. And without having a clear niche, I couldn't work out who I should be going after as a client. So in the end, I stopped trying to figure that out and I just started building systems for myself. Systems to solve problems in my own business. And I documented those builds on this YouTube channel, not exactly as a strategy, but mainly because I really had no better idea what else to do at that point. One of those videos showed a prototype tender discovery system that I built to solve a problem I was interested in. Then the director of a marine safety company saw it, and he looked me up on LinkedIn and he got in touch. They'd already seen the work and they trusted the approach before we'd even had the chance to speak. So I didn't have to convince them of anything. I just had to build them a better version of the thing I'd already demonstrated for them. But to do that, the no-code tools were not going to be enough. For example, Make.com has one module with a maximum timeout of 300 seconds. And for a system that needed to scrape procurement databases, parse the results, and handle a whole bunch of edge case at scale, it kept hitting that limit and breaking everything. After a very short while, I'd reached the ceiling of what that tool can do. And that was when, feeling pretty frustrated, I took the problem to Claude Code. I asked Claude Code to help me find a way through, and it came back with a Python script that basically did what Make.com couldn't. I rebuilt the whole automation in Python, I deployed it on Railway, and it ran really smoothly without hitting a single timeout. I'd used Python briefly during my PhD, so it wasn't like the terminal was completely unfamiliar or terrifying. But I'd never written production code from scratch, and I didn't need to. So if there was something I didn't understand, I could just ask Claude to explain it. And if I disagreed with the direction it was taking, I just said so in plain English and it adjusted. What really mattered was being able to describe the problem clearly. And that turned out to be something that my background had been training me to do for over 15 years. The marine safety build showed me this directly. At one point, Claude Code suggested building a dashboard, like a fancy, flashy dashboard, to display all the new contract opportunities that it was finding. But I knew what the client actually needed. The director of the company just needed to open his email in the morning and see a simple list of relevant opportunities waiting for him. A daily digest that was clean and clear and immediately usable. So I explained that to Claude Code and it rebuilt everything accordingly. That particular decision had nothing to do with the ability to code or any technical skill whatsoever. It came from understanding what a specific person needed to do with information for the sake of his business, which is exactly what I learned from years of journalism and client-facing work, which is what it taught me to think about. So the system went live, And in the first 60 days of operation, it found over £4 million worth of relevant contract opportunities for this company. They submitted at least 12 bids that they would potentially have completely missed without the system. So that was a proud moment for me. And it's when my mixed career history finally stopped feeling like a liability. So here's what I take from this experience if I was starting over again. I couldn't find my niche just by thinking about it. That's a really easy way just to get tied up in knots and never move forward. Instead, I was able to find it by building things that solved real business problems, starting with myself, and then documenting them publicly on YouTube and also LinkedIn. You can pick your platform for this. The right client ended up finding me because they'd already seen the work. And the added bonus there was that it took away the hardest part of consulting, which is convincing someone to trust you and trust your skill before they have any evidence that you can do the work. And when I started building the thing itself, the skill that mattered the most wasn't actually my technical knowledge, but it was my ability to describe a problem clearly and stay focused on what the end user, the business person, actually needed. So if you've spent years in a communication or client-facing or analytical role, you probably already have that skill, but maybe you've just never thought of it as being relevant to a world of building with AI systems. But Claude Code rewards people who can think and communicate clearly about problems. And that is a whole different capability from traditional software engineering. And it's one that a lot of people with varied career backgrounds already have in spades. So now I founded an AI automation agency that builds production systems for businesses in niches like defense and procurement. The work produces results in days, weeks, sometimes even hours. And I can see the outcome of what I build immediately after shipping it, which is really satisfying. So the career history that felt so incoherent turned out to be exactly the right preparation for this particular pivot. And that's because all of it together was the key to interpreting this stuff. So if you've spent years accumulating experience across a whole bunch of careers and angles that don't obviously connect, that's really not the obstacle here. In fact, it might be exactly what makes you good at this. So I'm curious, what's the experience in your background that you've always assumed was irrelevant to AI automation work? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to read every one. And I'd be willing to bet that it matters more than you think. And if you've got a varied career background and you're trying to figure out whether someone like you can actually start building with AI, maybe even turn it into a career, I'm putting together a cohort specifically for you. It's going to be 6 weeks, highly practical and focused on building real things. The link to join the waitlist is below. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.